One of my favorite quotes that says, education is the best weapon you can use to change the world.
What does it take to thrive in the world of family businesses? This week we speak to Emma Loyal. This is She Means Business. I am your host, Claire Munde. Emma, we're happy to have you this week on She Means Business, and you are an entrepreneur and you wear many hats. How does an architect get into the world of school? Because, you know, we think vertical integration, you think it will be something in those lines, but then explain to us what your thinking was when you decided to start a school. What was the inspiration behind that?
So first of all, education and children are something I've always been passionate about. So I happen to have taught. We called them untrained teachers those days, that you always finished school and got into something. And I taught, and I really enjoyed my life as a teacher before joining university, and I'd always been passionate about education. And so those for me were not different worlds. They were who I am, even in my architecture and in my what we call a thesis, because when you finish your 6th year you do research. My research was around education and how the environment impacts learning in children. So it's been something that was always a fire burning in me, and something that I was very, very passionate about. And I think the stars aligned in terms of what we wanted to see in a school, and maybe around us we were not seeing that. We wanted a school that was not entirely about rote learning, and at the time it was the time of 844. I wanted a school that was not necessarily following the international curriculum, but borrowing a lot from international curriculums and raising a global citizen, but who's very, very much grounded in who they are as a Kenyan. And we're not seeing that around. So we started almost a school to solve our own problem, and that's the best kind of business, when you're solving a problem for yourself. And the rest is history. We have started our international curriculum as well, because we've seen there's a lot of potential there. On the flip side, an international curriculum now that has a leaning in terms of a local value system, and then our local system with a leaning towards international. So we find the two are very complementary to each other. But I think slowly getting people's buying, getting people's belief has paid off now, and really just being invested in what you're doing. My children go to my school, and that really speaks to my belief in already what we believe in and what we're doing as a school.
And I'd also like to get your thoughts in terms of education. We've moved from the 844 to the CBC. There's been, back and forth and whatnot. But what are your thoughts when it comes to the education system and where we are and what the future really is when it comes for the education of our children?
And Nelson Mandela is one of my favorite quotes that says, education is the best weapon you can use to change the world. So our children are absolutely important. The education of our citizenry is absolutely important, especially a country like Kenya, where our biggest resource is actually human resource. Kenyans are known for their proficiency in terms of critical thinking, their proficiency in language and communication around the world. We rate very, very well, and that just stems from how much we invest and care about our education. So I think it is important that we don't lose the ball on that, because it's fundamental for Kenyans. Speaking to many Africans and African entrepreneurs across, they get it about Kenyans. I've heard there's a particular university that does online courses, a bit famous. I won't mention them, but they do tests across Africa to admit into their university, and Kenyans consistently score the highest in terms of ambition. They have a matrix that they use to test your hustle factor, or whatever you call it, proficiency, critical thinking. Kenyans always score higher than anybody else in Africa. So we must not lose this resource that we already have. We must invest in education. So some things are troubling me. Some things are troubling me in terms of our commitment to being orderly around how we are rolling out certain, like, or the new system, or rolling out certain change of policies that then impacts, how people's access to education. Or so I still think I'm a big proponent also of CBC. So CBC is a good system in terms of where it's taking us, in terms of the shift to 21st century skills, less about rote learning, more about critical thinking, collaboration, communication, application of your knowledge, because they're saying now that in your lifetime or our children's lifetime, you won't have one career. You'll probably have one career, retire from that, have another one, retire from that. So what is important in inculcating in our children, is a love for learning and that agility to critical think and reinvent. Just I can learn something new and apply myself. So I would, in a sense, really implore powers that be that we take education very, very seriously. If we need to, the things that need to be resourced the most, education and healthcare, because they speak to the well-being of our people. And if the people are well, then the rest, the rest of the magic will happen.
You've heard it. We've been talking to Emma Miloyo, the founder of Kiota Schools and Design Source. Go for it. Solve a problem and the money will follow you later. This has been She Means Business. I have been your host, Claire Munde. Have a good one.